Hello, people of Earth. Today, I present you one, the chosen one. Nice, beautiful, slick module by TIPTOP Audio. Dare I say, one is a lollipop amongst Eurorack modules. I mean, seriously, just take a look at it. Those nice rubbery knobs with friendly colors accompanied by a colorful set of ins and outs. When you look at it, you want to touch it, you want to cuddle with it, you want to hug it and kiss it. And even if you do not need this module, just buy it and rock it, because it brings so much sunshine into any system. It looks like it's really simple device, and it is simple, but under the hood there are some few options that make this module special and make it so much more than just a playback device for samples. But we'll get to that later. For starters, let's take a look at the interface of the panel controls and most basic stuff. First of all, we have a SD card slot and SD card. As you can see, there are some third-party cards offered by TIPTOP Audio, but of course I encourage you to load your own samples, which is that easy, and I'll tell you about in a second. So you insert the card here and it loads really fast. And that's one of the special things about this module. It is really fast. See, any digital device, such as a sampler, applies some processing to the audio, especially when it's on an SD card. It needs to read the sample from the card and process it in some cases, and that takes time. And one is ultra fast because it does all this stuff in the fastest mode, in the trigger mode, in 0.25 milliseconds. And that is really fast and makes it perform on par with some other analog devices. And because of that, one can seamlessly adapt to any modular setup. It's really fast, and it could also be really high fidelity because it accepts virtually any sample format. It has to be a mono file, but it can be 16 or 24 bits, but also from 8 to 96 kilohertz. So we can load some low-fi files, but also some really high fidelity, crystal clear samples. Here you can manually trigger the samples. You can also trigger them with the gate in right here. Here you have the volume. Here you have a rotary encoder, which allows you to choose one of 256 samples that are allowed on the SD card. That is the only limitations. The samples can be really short, under a second, and can be really long, like an hour long. So it's not only a percussion module, but it could be your main playback device for a live set or whatever. Here you have a pitch, and this can also be modulated through CV with some different settings. Speaking of, that is the only potential source of confusion, because you have two sets of modes that you choose with a combination of holding the trigger button and switching it with the upper knob, the yellow one, or with the lower. It's a potential source of confusion because you have the same indications for different modes. For example, when you hold it with the first parameter, you have a solid red, or you have a solid blue, and you get the same colors down here, solid red and solid blue, but they mean something completely different. Let's start with the upper one. Okay, these are the playback modes. The default mode and the fastest mode is the solid red mode, which is a trigger. This is the fastest mode. If you need this to be a percussion mode and you are not afraid of any glitches or clicks that might appear at the beginning of a sample or at the end, you choose the red trigger mode, as it is the fastest one. The second mode is solid blue meaning it's a gate mode. Gate mode allows you to hold the sound as long as the gate is present at the input. So I have connected this to Depfer A1641 manual trigger, and you can hear that if I press it shortly, abruptly, it's abrupt, but if I hold it, it's longer. So as long as the gate is present, it's high at the input, the sound appears at the audio output. The third playback mode is called loop mode, and it's indicated by a flashing red LED. This means that whenever you press the trigger, it's going to loop just like that. And this function is especially useful because imagine this scenario. Imagine loading the SD card with single waves from some synthesizer oscillator. Enabling loop mode allows you to transform one into a simple yet effective oscillator. Even more, you can load some LFO waves in here, noise, and use that also as a modulation source. So you can already see how many things it can already do, being such a small package. The next mode, which is flashing blue, it's called fade mode, and it's really similar to the trigger mode, with the only difference being that it applies some fade ins and fade outs at the beginning and at the end of the sample. So if you want to avoid clicks or glitches or any unexpected artifacts, you would choose the fade mode for that. Let's go to the next playback mode. This one is alternating blue and red, and this is a sequencing mode, meaning every time a trigger appears at the trigger in, it will change to the next sample. Just like that. Each time I press the trigger, it changes the sample, and the first sample, of course, is the one that you set with the encoder. Okay, really cool stuff. Now let's check out what can we change with the lower parameter. The first one, in this case, a solid red, means that the pitch that is affected by the CV in here is being treated in free pitch mode, meaning it's not quantized. So for example, if I play the samples and I apply some modulation to the CV, like so, as you can hear, it is not quantized in any way. Now if I change it to blue, it will be quantizing the incoming CV signal, and it has a range of 3.5 octaves. In order to show you this, I have changed the mode to a trigger mode, and we're going to trigger this one sample, and we are going to apply some this is quantized within a 3.5 octaves. Okay, simple as that. The third mode is the most interesting one, and this one right here is a flickering red, and this is file select mode. This means that you can choose a sample with the CV and a CV signal applied right here. And that is especially useful because you are choosing a sample but not triggering. So these are two separate processes going on. You choose a sample with this parameter and this input, and you trigger a sample either manually or with the gate in. So with a bit of clever programming, you can program a whole beat, a whole loop with different percussion instruments just with one module, just with one. For example, I can connect pressure points, T gate to gate in, and one of the CV output rows to the CV. That's what I do right now. So that's where the T gate goes in. Okay. All right. And that's where the CV from the first row goes. So now when I touch any of the plates, okay, you can see I can switch a sample, and I can choose a sample with the knob corresponding to each of the plates, which is very, very useful. And that is just one basic, really simple scenario. If you, of course, incorporate some different modules and some different sequencers, you can get some really interesting results with it. Some few more housekeeping information. You can swap the cards while playing. Nothing will happen. You just have to trigger it once to load it. And TIPTOP Audio is recommending Audacity sample editor, audio editor, and I can confirm this is the right choice because, first of all, Audacity is a free audio editing software, and secondly, it's easy to use and it has a really nifty function that's called, I believe, chains, but it's a batch programming in essence. So what you can do is you can just drop a bunch of samples in there, set the properties like mono, 60 beats and rate and everything, and then just hit a button, go for a coffee, come back, and it's all done. Pop it into your puppy and you're good. Thank you very much for your attention, and as always, if you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. Spread the good word.
Wow.